Hello, this is Andrew again, and this is episode 143. Today we're moving on to Matthew chapter 19, verses 16 to 22. This is really one part of three. This is the first part. The next two will follow on from this, but I won't be reprising the text. So this is what is often known as the story of the rich young ruler. Matthew chapter 19. Now Jesus is close to Jericho from memory, and he's not far from the end of his journey. So we pick up the narrative of Matthew chapter 19 verse 16. Then someone came to him and said, "Teacher, what good deed must I do to have eternal life?" And he said to him, "Why do you ask me about what is good? There is only one who is good. If you wish to enter into life, keep the commandments." He said to him, "Which ones?" And Jesus said, "You shall not murder, you shall not commit adultery, you shall not steal, you shall not bear false witness. Honour your father and mother also. You shall love your neighbour as yourself." The young man said to him, "I've kept all these. What do I still lack?" Jesus said to him, "If you wish to be perfect, go, sell your possessions and give you the money to the poor, and you'll have treasure in heaven. Then come, follow me." When the young man heard this word, he went away grieving, for he had many possessions. Jesus is telling us something I think important today about kingdom values. Kingdom of heaven values. And we'll be picking this up in the next day or so as well. So many of us imagine that being rich will make us happy. I remember hearing a couple of years ago when Lotto in New Zealand at that point was up to about 30 million. A couple of radio hosts discussing the studies that said that most people who won Lotto ended up being unhappy. It didn't make them happy. They imagined it would, but it didn't. And one of the hosts, who I thought was quite witty, says, that may be the case. He says, but I'd like the opportunity to be $30 million miserable. I kind of got that. I understand that. In the end, it's largely about seeking security. The difficulty is the more we have to worry about. Being poor, on the other hand, is also problematic. It brings its own challenges, it brings its own stresses and strains. There's a line from Fiddler on the Roof where Tevye, the central character, puts it like this, and I think he puts it pretty well. "Dear God, you've made many, many poor people. I realise, of course, that it's no shame to be poor, but it's no great honour either. So would it have been so terrible if I had a small fortune?" And I think many of us can kind of understand and relate to that. Living a hand-to-mouth existence is no joy. So, have I brought lotto tickets? Yes, I have. I know it's probably not very clever, and statistically the chances of winning thing are very, very small. There's more chance of winning, there's less chance of winning lotto than there is of getting killed in your car on the way to the shop to buy the ticket. But we still do it, and I'll probably do it again. In my previous appointment, I did a brief stint as a budget advisor. And it was interesting listening to other budget advisors. They were working with people who would have to live on a very strict budget, controlled by the budget advisor, for up to 3 years, with absolutely no wriggle room at all. I think I had one, maybe two clients. One of the things that I did and would always do was encourage them to keep a small part of the budget, just a very, very small part, to buy a lotto ticket. Doesn't have to be for Powerball or anything like that, just a lotto ticket each week. And why would I advise that? Well, it's simply to keep hope alive. Because for a great many people, there is no hope. It is true that they are not going to win anything, but that's not the point. It's not just keeping hope alive, it's keeping alive a dream. And I think that's true for all of us. We need a dream. True, it's ultimately a false hope. It's an illusion. And even if you won Lotto, it would only provide a distraction. The truth is that much of life is a distraction. We engage in activities to distract us from the reality that we're going to die, or to provide a bulwark against the possibility of suffering. This young man has traded eternity for imagined security on this side of it. His wealth, it gives him some advantages. So this man has traded eternity for imagined security this side of it. It's true that he gets some benefits from his wealth. It gives him status. People look to him. It gives him power. It gives him an illusion of control. I want us to notice, though, that we don't even know his name. He simply becomes an anonymous footnote in the history in the Bible. It might have gone quite differently. Jesus offers him the adventure of a lifetime. Sell all you have, give it to the poor, and you'll have treasure in heaven. And then come, follow me. And how might that have turned out? I have no idea. There are no guarantees. Jesus is perhaps less than a month away from completing his mission as he heads to Jerusalem, facing his suffering and his death. Yet, it's also on the cusp of the start of one of the most exciting periods in human history to be one of Jesus' followers. For it's in less than 3 months, the fledgling Christian church is about to burst onto the world stage with explosive power. My hunch is that if he'd taken up Jesus' offer, we may know his name, and that he'd look back on his life and he'd mark this as the turning point when life for him really began, and he'd have absolutely no regrets, whether life was short or long. I wonder how much each of us are held back by our stuff, held back from the adventure of life that Jesus holds out before us, preferring the safety, the security of the known, the guaranteed. It was pointed out to me that there is one commandment that Jesus misses of the latter group of commandments that he recites earlier. You shall not covet. It's that need for security, for status, for recognition that keeps us from stepping out. And here we see it manifested in the commandment, you shall not covet, because coveting points to our belief that we don't have enough, that we're not enough. That our security is to be found in having more or in being more. Only just a little bit more and we'll have enough. Yet it's never enough. The richest person is never rich enough. The bodybuilder who spends his life at the gym is never enough. The woman who spends all her energy and time and focus on her appearance is never enough. The person who looks beyond the person they are with in an intimate relationship and idealizes and longs for what someone else has is never enough. There are so many ways that coveting, comparing ourselves to others, and wanting what they have, in the belief that it will make us happy, give us a sense of contentment and security we crave, will never satisfy. And we have all we need right here, right now, if only we can see it. Paul puts it this way in one of his last letters. In 1 Timothy 6 he says, "Godliness with contentment is great gain. For we brought nothing into the world, and we can certainly take nothing out of it. But if we have food and clothing, we will be content with that. Those who want to get rich fall into temptation and a trap, and into many foolish and harmful desires that plunge people into ruin and destruction. For the love of money is a root of all kinds of evil. Some people, eager for money, have wandered from the faith and pierced themselves with many griefs." I think he summarizes it pretty well. Jesus' invitation is to step away from all of that and to simply put our lives, our futures, because this is all about our protecting ourselves from the future, into his hands and quietly trusting ourselves to him. And what kingdom kind of people we'll become. God bless you.